What's up, y'all? CJ Pearson here, and welcome to Family Matters. It's so good to see you. We have a jam-packed show ahead of you for today. But first, let's get into it. The Democrats have a racism problem. They always have. And if history is any guide, they always will. And maybe that's why I don't really give much of a damn about some random group chat that consists of a bunch of Republicans that no one has ever heard of. These are the people who founded the Ku Klux Klan, who wrote Jim Crow into law, who told my great-grandmother she belonged in the back of the bus, and now somehow they've convinced half the country that they're the good guys? Amazing. Truly. And of course, when you bring this up, they say, oh, that was a long time ago. Sure, except it's not. The same instinct, the same hatred for independent-minded Black Americans is alive and well. Just look at 2021. Larry Elder runs for governor of California. A brilliant, self-made Black man in the Los Angeles Times calls him a, quote, blackface for white supremacy. Let that sink in. According to the left, if you don't think the way they tell you to, you're not really Black. They moved on from burning crosses to canceling you online, but it's all the same ideology. Or take Winsome Sears, a Marine, veteran, immigrant, mother, and one of the most inspiring women in politics. A liberal protester, who was white by the way, held up a sign saying, hey Winsome, if trans can't share your bathroom, then Blacks can't share my water fountain. That's not edgy, that's not progressive, that's racism, the exact kind that Democrats pretend to evolve beyond. See, the truth is this, the left doesn't hate racism, they hate free thinkers. When a Black conservative refuses to play their game, they lose control and reveal exactly who they've always been. And as Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Let's get into it. It's Family Matters. Guys, welcome to the show. I want to thank you. This is your first time here, yes. Delano. Yes. Delano, of course, you're doing some great and important work at the Heritage Foundation. Michaelah Montgomery, of course, a friend of the show, recurring guest. What do you take of this, fixation from many folks in the national media over the course of the past week, over these group chats that have kind of emerged? A lot of these people, I've never heard of them. I don't really know many of their names. And honestly, I've seen a lot of people on the right condemn them. Why do you think the media is kind of fixating on this story right now, Delano?
I think the media looks for any opportunity to paint conservatives as racist. So anything that they can get their hands on, whether it's public statements or their miscasting of public policy, they'll use that. So when they get private group messages that are leaked, obviously they'll say this is how all Republicans think, and this is why different minority groups choose not to vote Republican or conservative.
Yeah. And I read a quote from this sign that still actually, I can't even believe it was real when I saw it. I thought it was like AI or Photoshop. Mm-hmm. This sign again said, hey Winsome, if trans can't share your bathroom, then Blacks can't share my water fountain. This is a white liberal in Alexandria, Virginia, not too far away from the studio here. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that sign?
Let's really talk about the fact that they are trying to cause, basically, they are inciting the erasure of what civil rights really is, And so they are just hell-bent on everything gay, and equating gay rights to civil rights. And we let Obama get away with that. But now you see what happens when you let that door open a little bit. We cracked it open just a little bit, and now here it is. Because what in the world does a trans kid, a boy with a dick, what business does he have in the same bathroom as my daughter? Y'all are nuts. Martin Luther King did not march for that. Martin Luther King marched for things that were outlined in the Bible. It is biblically that we are not supposed to separate each other by race, by gender, yada, 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 yada. That makes sense. Saying that trans rights equates to civil rights, and if my husband can't walk into your bathroom, then you, as a Black person, shouldn't be able to use my water fountain. This is the kind of equilibrium they were hoping to achieve when they were ushering in this LGBTQIA agenda, and this is how, by them equating it to civil rights, they managed to brainwash the Black community into thinking that this is something you should be okay with, because historically, we was never with that. Yeah. I mean, this isn't something to be proud of, but at one point in time in the Black community, it was dangerous to be gay. We did not pride ourselves on this. We did not take our kids to parades. We did not have drag queens reading to our children. It was God made a man and a woman, and this is how things are supposed to be. And yet then, the tolerance movement came in, and the exception, you got to accept everything. And it's like, I don't have to accept this. And it's like the fact that you have, they've likened it so much to civil rights that now if you refuse to marry a gay couple in your church, you might lose your role as pastor. That's despicable. And so these are the types of things that we have to watch out for. It literally starts with an inch, but they always will take a mile.
Yeah. And it's like, Delano, a lot of your work focuses on the Black family. How is that embrace of wokeness kind of eroded the Black family in this way? As Michaelah pointed out, like, as far as the way in which a lot of Black people approach a lot of these LGBT issues, I think that a lot of young Black people probably are to the point, like, if you're gay and you want to get married, like, no one cares. It's 2025. It is what it is. But I still think Black people across all demographics have a problem when you're saying, yeah, a guy can use the same bathroom as my daughter, or a guy should be able to compete against my daughter's volleyball team. Those traces of social conservatism, which I wouldn't even call social conservatism, I think it's just common sense, still exists and are prominent within the Black community today.
Yeah, I definitely would say so. And obviously, there are ways in which if you have a community that votes 90% for one party, whatever that party's agenda is going to have, an outsized impact on that particular community. But in terms of how we got here, I'd say post-1960s, and a lot of people will go back to the Moynihan report that talked about the breakdown of the Black family. In 1965, it's about 24% of Black children were born out of wedlock. And that was at a time where the Black poverty rate was about 40%. And you fast forward to today, it's close to 70% of Black children are born out of wedlock, even though the poverty rate has dropped to under 20%. So I'd say how we got here and making the connections between the issues we're fighting now and where we were at sort of post-1960s is at a certain point, the moral compass within the Black community stopped being right and wrong, good and evil, right, based on a sort of a broadly Christian biblical worldview, and it became oppressed and oppressor. And once we accepted that new framework, right, which people cast in the terms of revolution, once we accepted that, our politicians accepted it, and particularly our churches accepted it, right? Once the liberation theology hit, then this notion that whoever is oppressed, we need to fight for, got sort of woven into the culture. And so then all you do is you keep adding different groups onto that oppression list. And now, to your point, the newest group of people who believe that they were born in the wrong body, and that is why you see many Black voters feel, particularly the most public personalities, right? The people, I call them the Afrostocracy, the Black progressive preachers, pundits, performers, pastors.
Roland Martins, your Michaelah
Correct. All of those people feel as if they have to speak up for quote unquote oppressed and marginalized groups, because if they tell the truth, they know what's going to happen, particularly on with respect to the Democratic Party and the people who tend to write their checks.
They would be canceled by white liberals. But what's crazy about Jamal Bryant, like Roland Martin, he's a commentator, he's a pundit, say whatever you want. Mark Lamont Hill, he's a commentator, he's a pundit, say whatever you want. Jamal Bryant is a pastor, allegedly, some would say. I don't know if he was ordained or online or not, but like, this is a man who goes into the pulpit, goes into God's house every single Sunday and equates, Blackness with transgenderism and all of these things. And it's so scary to me that there are people in that congregation clapping like seals and who aren't realizing that they are literally being led astray, which is, is scarier than anything, that there's not a level of discernment there for some reason.
It's idolatry. You have made your Blackness the center of everything. And that's how you separate yourself from everyone. And for you as a preacher to literally preach against what's in the Bible, we are supposed to be coming together, regardless of what you look like, where you're from, yada, yada, yada. Jesus preached, and we're supposed to be spreading the gospel to all four corners of the earth. Yet, pastors like Jamal Bryant say that only certain Black people deserve to hear the gospel. Because if you don't agree with how I'm preaching, if you don't agree with what I preach on, if you don't agree with my perception of the Bible, then you are not getting into heaven. And it's like, at what point do we trust one man's understanding, one man's perception, one man's opinion, and we take that as law, and then we intertwine that with our faith, and now we have basically, messed up the message. Oh, I also wanted to add something. Because earlier you mentioned about how, there's the oppressed and the oppressor. And then to go on to your point with how, you have your Merle Martins and your Mark Lamont Hills constantly telling Black people that they cannot make it, they cannot do it, the world is so racist. I want to know, how did racism skip y'all? Because y'all are millionaires.
Right.
So
living in white neighborhoods.
Come on. So it's like, if the world is so racist, right? How is it that neither of your neighbors look like you, but you go home and sleep just fine every night? If the world is so racist, how does your bank account have 2 and 3 commas? Yet for whatever reason, you will sit in front of large groups of Black people. You will sit on a platform and speak to millions of Black people, and you will tell them they will never get rich because they are oppressed. Yet somehow you slip through the cracks. Where this crack at, and how can we all get to it? And why are you not leading the rest of the Black people to the same crack you slipped through? Unless the door is wide open and you have understood that if you just lead these people this way, you can keep amounting wealth for yourself that way. And that is the real goal here. It's never to help people. It's to make people feel like they are helpless.
Yeah. And they've also discovered the victim industrial complex, right?
Yes.
That there is a lot of money to be made in just making people believe themselves to be victims. Al Sharpton cracked the code early on. He's the OG of it all. And then many other people followed in his footsteps. You look at BLM, the DeRay McKessons and all those people who came up. The one guy, Sean King, who is probably the most notorious.
Talcum X.
Right, Talcum X. Like the most notorious one, who would raise all of this money for so-called Black causes. And the Black people never got the money.
Never.
And that's not isolated to him. You look at the leaders of BLM. They raise all of this money. I see you got a new house here, a new house there, a new house there. Got more homes than a lot of white people. And you want to sit here and, again, continue to sell this victim narrative to Black people because it's putting money in your bank account. And so they're definitely economically incentivized to continue up, this charade. But, going back to the group chats, what I wish Republicans would do is be smart. What Democrats do, they will take the tiniest example of racism or from someone and hang it around every Republican's neck like an albatross.
Absolutely.
Why don't we have every Democrat saying, I condemn, telling Winston Sears that she's not allowed to use a water fountain? Barack Obama should have been forced to release a statement. Joe Biden should have been forced to release a statement. Every single member of Congress should have been forced to release a statement saying, this is racism, I condemn it. The Democrat Party is not a place of hate. Why are we always allowing ourselves to be pushed into that's my thing with this. It's like, yes, that group chat, disgusting, wrong, bad, whatever, all the disclaimers. What I don't like is that we're always on defense when it comes to this stuff when there are so many examples that we could readily be on offense about. These people, and also too, it's like, if it's not the Black thing, it's like the Hitler thing. These people spent the last year championing Hamas on college campuses all throughout America.
And nobody said a word.
Right. And so they want to say, oh, no, but the Republicans, they're the real Nazis. Y'all were literally saying from the river to the sea, which means the extermination of everyone in Israel. So
they
who
don't
are
get
the
that.
Nazis?
They
Who
don't
agrees
do
with
the
them?
background research
Right.
before they start their activism. They're like, hey, this is cool. Everybody's doing it. Let me hop on board. Free Palestine. You been over there? Take your Black ass to Palestine and see how free you'll be. They're over here, championing abortion. Everybody who champions abortion has been born. So please tell me how in the world do you think canceling the next voice or the next life is any better? Championing LGBTQIA rights and making them the same thing as civil rights. Well, now we have these issues and now we have these laws that we don't know how to apply. We have scholarships and we don't know who to give them to. Are we going to be tolerant? You got to go in the back and get a physical in order to, qualify for the scholarship. Now we're violating, your privacy laws and stuff. Like it's so much. But when it comes to the group chats, right? Because I was mentioned in one. So
you were the most recent one. I forgot about that actually.
It's like, ooh,
I didn't know
the
that.
thing is, until somebody sent it to me, how did it impact my life? And so that's my thing. It's like, yes, you hang it around every Republican's neck, but much like you said, these are a bunch of nobodies. And they have every article saying Republican leaders.
Like, who's following them?
Thank you. Like, they're not leading anybody. These are not leaders and voices that we pay attention to, that we follow. These are just some random motherfuckers on campus. So with that
Well,
being
no.
said,
Let's not do that, though. They're not on. These are grown men.
Oh, those were grown ones?
These
We're
are-
talking
these-
about the grown ones.
There was never one with
Oh, I thought it was all college kids.
No, that's the one thing.
Well, the way they were typing, I'm thinking these are kids.
No,
well, that goes to show you the intelligence level of these people. And therefore, we, as real conservatives, don't have to claim that because we read books. We are grammatically correct. We understand enunciation, pronunciation, all of those things. And therefore, yes, the fact that I thought I was looking at kids talking to each other this whole time and I wasn't says a lot. But again, whatever they said in their group chat amongst each other never affected me. I didn't even know somebody was talking about me until somebody told me, hey, these folks is talking about you. And even with that, life is still great for me. Baby, I've been on like 5 planes in the last 5 days. Like, life is amazing. Nothing stopped because somebody thought that I can't read. Like, what? Yeah. So, I don't know. I just think that the Dems don't have anything else to put on us. We're doing great work federally, we're doing incredible work locally. We are waking up the minds of the youth. We are helping the middle-aged people understand that we feel their pain. We are letting older people know that we still care about the future that you have left. We have not forgot about you guys. Like, we are over here really making shit happen. Yeah. So what can they do besides we have to find something that's going to emotionally enrage everybody so that they can be distracted from all the good work that is going on.
But it's always their playbook. It always has been.
Always.
Before every election, we had a time where it was always like a BLM thing every other election cycle. Now we, of course, we're within striking distance in Virginia and New Jersey. So they say, how can we get black people enraged again? Oh, we're going to take these random people that no one knows again and say, oh, they represent every Republican in America, despite many Republican voices condemning what they said, rightfully so. And it's just such a tired playbook. But what's offensive about it is it goes to show how much they believe they can emotionally manipulate the black community. They believe that we are that simple. And I don't know, that does not sit well with me, but I think that we have to prove them wrong. That's where we shoulder the burden in that sense. So if we let them get us all bent out of shape because of some random people, some unfortunate looking people who said a series of unfortunate things, then we deserve the treatment that we get. You said something that was really interesting and I think is a good segue to something else I wanted to talk about. The persecution of Christians in the Middle East. You said, take your black ass to Palestine if you like it so much. Honestly, great advice. But this story actually was in the Washington Post and it talked about how over 7,000 Christians were murdered in Nigeria in just the first 7 months of 2024. Those are black people being murdered. But honestly, the Democrats don't really care about black people dying in America, so I don't know why they would care about that in Nigeria. But they probably also don't care about Christians dying overseas as well. But this is like a really shocking thing. What's shocking to me is how no one in the mainstream media is talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to get a little bit more coverage, but I think when it comes to foreign conflicts, the national appetite has only been for either Ukraine or Israel and Palestine. Nothing else. Yeah. Whether it's in the Congo or whether it's in Nigeria, nothing else tends to get any sort of airplay. But I'm glad to see elected officials are talking more about it. Yeah. Hopefully, more American churches will begin to raise some of these issues. And I'm assuming the UN would have a role to play here if you have this type of this type of violence going on, where you have, I believe, Muslims in Nigeria who are the ones slaughtering these Christians. There needs to be a response, but as I said, we don't really have the bandwidth. Our media only has bandwidth for 2 foreign conflicts at one time.
Yeah, and I think the black community is obviously very evangelical, very Christian. I think that we should obviously be very concerned about what's happening here in Nigeria. But also, too, my opinion, and this is someone who considers myself a supporter of Israel, if we can expend that much energy towards that issue, then we should also expend just as much as ensuring that Christians are not being persecuted anywhere in the world. Like, this is a Christian nation. We are one nation under God. And if Muslim leadership and African countries are committing Christian genocide, that's a problem. That should be disconcerting to every single American.
And it's the fact that it's been going on for years. Like, for the past 5 years, the number one victims of the genocides that are happening in Nigeria and similar countries are of Christians. We make up 90% of that demographic of the people getting killed, and nobody's saying a word. And as you guys know, I went to the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. And so as much as I love my HBCU, I did see a lot of Free Palestine protests going on. I can guarantee you I was just on campus because it's homecoming week. I don't see nobody talking about Free Nigeria. I don't see nobody talking about Free the Congo. I don't see nobody talking about any of these issues. And so it's like, everybody's like, oh yeah, Free Palestine because it could be you. Nigeria, they're more closely related to you down there in Nigeria.
Yeah.
That could definitely be you. And at the end of the day, when the 12-day war happened, right, and Iran was like, we have terror cells in America and we will activate them if necessary. What you guys are seeing in Nigeria, and even what you guys saw in the Israel-Palestine flight, is radical Islam trying its best to achieve its goal of world domination. As much as maybe many people might not be like, well versed on what's going on, like that is the Muslim end goal, is that's to dominate the world. And if the story of Muhammad in the Christian Bible, it explicitly speaks out against these type of people. And so God forbid, as more people turn towards Jesus, right, radical Islam loses its influence. Their only option is to kill us. And we're not saying anything about it. You're literally giving them what you want, and then you're siding with the people that are committing the atrocities. And it's like when 9/11 happened, we all were like, oh my God, like you guys don't understand just how far these folks will go for Allah. But when we saw it, we understood. Now we've ushered in this new generation where 9/11 is long. We say never forget, but a lot of people pretty much kind of did.
I wasn't even alive.
It's like, and so with that being said, it's like you guys have seen what'll happen when these types of groups want to send a message, and you're seeing it happen somewhere else. You also know that these people exist in the States, and yet you want to pay more attention to a conflict that has nothing to do with you, rather than look. All these folks talking about we want to go back to Africa. I'm giving up my passport. I'm going back home. I go home and see what happened, and understand that the freedoms that you have here in America and the lengths that our government go through to protect you from these types of things are the very reason why patriotic folks like us are not afraid to support our president, to say we love our country, to support our military, to love on our veterans, all of the lovely things. But for those of you who clearly don't have a passport, ain't never been nowhere, don't watch the news, and only use social media to see, whose baby mama did what, of course, you're not going to know what's actually happening in the world. But when you add up all these pieces, like I said, the terror cells are here. Radical Islam is trying its best to spread itself. Terror cells can be activated here in America. What in the world do y'all think is going to happen? What do you think the first target will be if radical Islam is activated in America? You can't go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
You can't go to Bible study on Wednesday. You can't go to choir practice on Thursday out of fear for your life.
Yeah. Speak to that. Like, you study a lot of these issues, like religiosity in the Black community. We've seen a lot of young people generally going back to church and kind of embracing that. Are there similar trends being seen right now, like within the Black community, among Black youth at all?
Well, actually, over the last few decades, religiosity is on a decline.
Wow.
So there's an increase in the number of people who identify as nuns, N-O-N-E-S, who say they subscribe to no particular religion. You'll hear this when people say, "Oh, I'm spiritual but not religious." I feel like there's some indications that things are starting to turn around, right? Certainly some trends in the right direction.
With church attendance being up. And
correct.
Things
You see professional athletes who are professing Christian faith, and college athletes are getting baptized on campus. But I think it remains to be seen what sort of the long-term effect of that will be. But the religion has been on the decline, particularly among younger generations, right? So, my mom, my mother-in-law, that generation, the ones who go to church on Sunday and Bible study on Wednesday, I feel like there's a growing subset of young people across the board who don't have that experience of going to church with grandma, with her sitting looking at you down the row because you're starting to act up and you getting back in line, right?
Pinching you.
Correct. So to that extent, I think there's a decline there, but the other thing is this, particularly within the Black community, the Black church's role, I would argue, has changed from that of primarily spiritual reformation and moral formation to one of political activation. So that's why when they want to talk about the Black church, it's every 4 years, and they have a handful of pastors: Jamal Bryant, Otis Moss, Freddie Haynes, William Barber, whose churches they'll go to, and it's always more about souls to the polls than it is about some of these important moral issues. And at least for me, in terms of my research, first and foremost, the Black family, right? The most politically active Black churches care more about the White House than they do the Black family. And I have a problem with that.
Why do you think there are so many attacks from the left on the Black family? Like, what is their motivation behind it? I feel like we all kind of know, but like, why do you think that so many people, like the people on this show know, but like many people in the black community haven't clocked it, like why they're going after us in the way that they are.
So I mean, if you read Karl Marx, Communist Manifesto, one of the things he talked about was abolishing the family. So a weakened family structure makes everybody in the household more vulnerable.
Yeah.
There are also industries that benefit from a weakened family structure. All right. So for instance, 87% of women who seek abortions are unmarried.
Yeah.
So generally, when a husband and wife come together, when they're committed to one another in marriage, the fruit of their offspring they look at as the fruit of reproduction, not a consequence of sex. The welfare state depends almost exclusively on single women.
Yeah.
There are very few means-tested welfare programs that go to married couples.
Yeah.
So in many respects, even when the left talks about poverty, they don't want to eliminate it, they want to manage it. And so they see our community as sort of first and foremost in terms of who they want to manage. So that's where you go to city after city, Baltimore, DC, Philadelphia, Atlanta, New Orleans, Cleveland, Detroit, and you're going to see many of the same things. So I think part of it is ideological, right? The left is the party of second wave feminists and LGBT activists, big government liberals. Part of it is ideological, and part of it is because there are many institutions that benefit when the family is weak.
That's incredible.
And like they can't sell the oppression argument if we have strong families. And like when you look at the Rothschilds, the Waltons, the Kellogg's, like these are family dynasties.
Yeah.
These are people who raised their kids up, kept the family close, instilled values in everybody, stayed close, and they kept having children, and they're like, here's how you manage this, here's how we're gonna do this. And it's like, they just keep passing down this generational wealth. If black people who once had that structure got back to that, then you can't sell me on abortion. Yeah. You can't sell me on trans rights. You can't sell me on an open border because I want to protect my home.
Yeah.
You can't sell me on literally anything that the Democratic Party stands for if we had strong black families. And notice, the strongest black families are more than likely conservatives.
Yeah.
They hold tight family values, and everybody know Miss Johnson don't play. Miss Baker don't play. Like, we don't play when it's like that. But like now that we have everybody all spread out, and of course, again, you're targeting single women, you usher in this feminism movement. So you got all these white women, white liberals propping up black women to believe that they don't need anybody. That white woman got a husband though. But she's telling you don't need nobody.
You ain't lying.
And you empower yourself by not having anybody. They encourage black women to be single.
But she's got a sneaky link, and she's got a baby daddy, and like all those things, though, So
the white woman?
No, the black.
Oh, I was about to say, where you find her at? No. That's the new age white.
But just
but even if she has a sneaky link and a baby daddy, like it's like we promote that. Yeah. So that's on us.
That's what I was gonna say, and we can kind of end on this note here, is that it's about the role models that we uplift as a community, right? We always hear about the athletes, we always hear about the rappers, but we never really talk about Bob and Sheila Johnson, who, founded BET, owns a salamander, all of those things, Robert Smith. I see so many people clowning Tyler Perry and speculating about his sexuality on TikTok. Why don't you talk about his business acumen? The fact that this man built one of the largest, TV studios. Y'all are so eager to call him F-word this, F-word that, or whatever, but not actually learn from him and take notes. It's like, that's the kind of thing. It's like, there's just this drive, and I saw it even growing up. It's just like we clown people for being successful and actually building something. It's like, yeah, you can rap, you can, play ball. That's incredible. That's great. But like to build a business, to build an empire, to build, an institution or a legacy of wealth, it's a completely different ball game. And so it's like, and there's just so many more names about that, but it's like, it seems like it's niche to even know about them. And I'm like, they were talking about taking black history out of schools. Why don't you talk about that black history? Like, why don't people know their names, right? So it's just like...
Because our history has to be riddled with oppression and suffering so that we can believe we really came far.
Yeah.
If we really taught that, hey, you guys were teaching other nations how to do math and astronomy, and you guys brought bathing to entire continents before they realized that they stunk, So it's like, God forbid we realize that we still have a long way to go. A lot of black people, unfortunately, are complacent where we are right now. And that's why they're able to buy into all the propaganda. That's why they're vulnerable and able to be targeted by these democratic demons the way that they are. It's all systematic. It's all set up. But, the systematic oppression that they speak of is not even the systematic oppression that they understand that they play a big hand in. Yeah. Every time you download a Sexy Red album, hey, the CIA claps jumps for joy. Every time a young black boy joins a gang, talking about this his hood, 4K trait, whatever they do, the CIA is jumping for joy. Like, there are so many, like, them Dems that are really running things behind the scenes, unregulated, are jumping for joy because all of their tactics are working. And much like you said, we make fun of the ones who are doing something good. Look at this fool reading books. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What is that? But if you go and you kill 2 people,
Right.
and you come back to school,
It's like, oh, you're hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, he slid. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I've never heard a black person's racial authenticity questioned because of how much they talk about shooting people, dealing drugs, pimping. I mean, none of them. I can't think of a single rapper who's ever been questioned for the things that he or she has said on wax. But the moment they express political opinions that are slightly to the right of the black mainstream, that's when the attack dogs come out. So yeah, I agree with you, CJ. There's a lot of people we can learn from. But I want to say this: there's also those everyday stories.
Yeah.
The black plumber and teacher who raise their kids and live below their means and scrimp and save and send them to college, and their kids go on and they get married and start a family, and that's part of what we need to get back to. And what I would say is that I think the biggest role that black conservatives can play today is around restoring those most important institutions. And some black conservatives may disagree with me. It's not around electoral politics, because we've seen what happens when we put all of our eggs in the basket of electing the right people, and we've seen how that has not worked for the last 60 years. I'm not about to do the same thing for a different party and think I'm going to get better results in the next 60 years. So it might be that some people that we know in our personal lives may not change how they vote immediately. But if in 30 years the black non-marital birth rate goes from 70% back down to 40%, I'll take that win. Even if it means that everybody's not voting in the way that I would like. Because ultimately, that most important institution is the family. All the outcomes that vex conservatives and progressives, whether it's in the schoolhouse, the jailhouse, or in the courthouse, all of those start in the home, and that's what we need to get back to.
It might be a Wednesday, but you just took us to church, Pastor. Guys, that is it for us this week here on Family Matters. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back here next week. In the meantime, be sure to share, subscribe, like on all platforms, and we'll see you guys soon. God bless y'all.